Stone blind, the Gorgon's Lament. In the forgotten shadows of the ancient world, a woman waited. Not a monster, but a soul condemned. The eyes that men feared were nothing more than mirrors of suffering placed upon her. Whispers spoke of her hair, writhing like serpents, yet no one remembered the tears that once stained her cheeks. Before the curse, she was a priestess, pure, devoted, bound to the temple's eternal silence. But the gods knew no mercy. A mistake, a breath of defiance, was taken as insult, and it twisted her fate into tragedy eternal. On the night of the curse, the wind carried her scream across the sea. The sky burned red, and from her hair, serpents were born, hissing her sorrow into the night. Since then the world saw her as a creature to be slain. No one asked what it meant to be trapped within a body no longer her own. Medusa found refuge in a cave of stone, far from the light of men. There statues stood in silence, witnesses to her curse, frozen mid-breath. They were not trophies, but burdens. Each face haunted her dreams, locked forever in fear and hatred. Beyond the cavern, her legends spread like fire. The name Medusa became a curse, a symbol of terror, stripped of the truth buried deep inside her. Yet in solitude, she still prayed, not for herself, but for justice that never came. And from afar, whispers of a hero began to echo, a man destined to be the end of her tale. He was called Perseus, the son of Zeus and a mortal woman. The gods whispered his name as if fate itself carried him forward. Perseus did not know the truth of the woman he was sent to kill. To him, she was a monster, nothing more than an obstacle placed before him. The gods armed him with gifts, a polished shield to serve as a mirror, a blade forged for killing, and winged sandals to carry him above danger. Each gift shimmered not with kindness, but with destiny's cruelty. As Perseus set sail, the waves churned violently, as though the sea itself mourned what was to come. Even the stars seemed to dim, hiding their eyes from fate's hand. In her cavern, Medusa stirred, feeling a shift in the air. Her serpents hissed softly, as if warning her of the approach of something inevitable. She had seen hunters before, men foolish enough to seek glory. But this time, something heavier pressed upon her chest, the weight of prophecy. The cave walls trembled as footsteps drew near. Each echo was like a heartbeat, counting down to the end. Perseus entered with caution, shield raised before him. He dared not meet her eyes, knowing the stone stillness that awaited the careless. Medusa's breath caught as she saw him, not with hatred, but with grief, for she knew her story would end in his shadow. And so, in that cavern of stone and silence, predator and prey faced one another. Neither realized they were both victims of the gods' cruel design. Perseus moved step by step, his shield angled to catch her reflection. He feared the sight of her eyes, yet craved the triumph promised by her death. Medusa did not strike. Instead, she whispered, her voice trembling like wind in a forgotten tomb. "Do you know what they did to me?" she asked, though her words echoed only against stone. Perseus tightened his grip, too afraid to listen. The silence between them weighed heavier than the cavern itself. Each heartbeat was a hammer, driving them closer to an inevitable end. Perseus lunged, blade flashing with divine light. The snakes shrieked, striking the air in fury. The cavern roared with chaos, stone crumbled, firelight shuddered, echoes rang like thunder. It was not a battle of man and monster, but of fate itself. Medusa struck with desperation, her claws raking against the shield's reflection. She saw herself in the polished bronze, and for a moment her sorrow doubled. Perseus turned away, avoiding her gaze, relying only on the mirrored truth before him. Every step he took felt guided by gods who watched from above. Medusa's strength waned, her strikes slower, her breath heavier, yet her eyes burned with a final plea for him to see her, not the monster. And in that fragile moment, Perseus lifted his blade high. The cavern seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the strike that would echo for eternity. The blade descended, cutting through shadow and silence. A single cry tore from Medusa's throat, echoing like a hymn of sorrow. Her body fell with grace, as if surrendering not to a warrior, but to the cruelty of fate itself. The snakes writhed one last time before falling still. Perseus stood shaking, breath ragged, his shield slick with sweat and blood. Victory felt hollow, as though he had slain more than flesh. He approached her fallen form, and for the first time dared to look upon her face. What he saw was not a monster, but a woman, tragic, broken, beautiful in ruin. Her curse ended in silence, the cavern mourning with its stillness. No snake stirred, no voice cried, only shadows remained. With trembling hands, Perseus lifted her head, as the gods had commanded. Her hair, once alive with serpents, hung lifeless like strands of stone. The cavern shuddered, as if grieving the loss of its mistress. Dust fell from the ceiling, settling like ashes upon her body. Perseus turned away, carrying both triumph and burden. The shield felt heavier now, weighed down by the truth he had seen in her eyes. Outside, the world would celebrate him as a hero. Yet inside the cavern, silence lingered, keeping the memory of a woman misunderstood. And thus ended the lament of the Gorgon, not with rage, but with sorrow. Her story, twisted by gods and men, was sealed in shadow and stone. The sea wind lashed against Perseus as he carried her head across the waters. The stars above refused to shine, hiding from the weight of his deed. He did not boast nor smile, though victory was his. Every wave seemed to whisper her name, mourning her in hushed tones. Legends would say he was brave, chosen, destined, but none would tell of the sorrow carved into his heart that night. Medusa's name became a warning, a tale for children. Her truth was buried, sealed beneath centuries of fear. The statues in her cavern remained, silent witnesses to her grief. They carried the weight of her final breath, unseen by mortal eyes. The gods rejoiced, their laughter rolling through Olympus. But in the hollow between stars, no justice answered Medusa's prayer. Her story was rewritten by victors, twisted into myth, yet fragments of her lament lingered in whispers, waiting to be heard. Even now, the wind through ruins carries her sorrow. It tells of a woman punished not for crime, but for existing against divine desire. The Gorgon's lament is not rage, but grief, not monstrosity, but memory. And so her tale remains, dark yet enduring, a story not of a beast slain, but of a woman silenced by gods.